The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
Your cyber bro, that is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him. I feel like that was the most appropriate for this one.
Yeah, so as promised, after a long delay, we're finally talking about Steel and Lace.
It was worth the wait, folks.
Yeah, I had seen this a while back, and I'd kind of forgot, it's basically like the sort of, Lady RoboCop kind of. It's like it's from the same era. It's got a similar vibe. Obviously, I guess we should trigger warning right away. The content
so many
warnings.
Triggers.
SA,
the suicide or self deletion. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, this is basically it's a rape revenge movie. But it's sort of usually that's like. The victim becomes the avenger or whatever, but in this case, it's kind of her, her brother. So obviously we'll get into the more specifics of it as we go, but
right.
It's kind of strange in that way. It doesn't, usually those movies are a lot about the catharsis of the person who has been harmed taking the power back, and you don't really get that with this because of the way things kind of come together.
Right.
But.
Well, and another thing is, you mentioned RoboCop, and kind of, sort of, right? It's kind of in a very similar vein. But another thing that it kind of brought to my mind was, and probably because I saw the trailer recently, a little bit of The Crow, but a sci-fi version of that too. But I guess they're all in the same vein, right? Yeah.
The Crow actually is a little bit more appropriate because in that, you have the woman who is raped and murdered, and then the man sort of becoming the avenger on her behalf.
Well, to be fair, he also gets murdered and some versions raped. So.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that new Crow. I will be. I don't know.
It doesn't.
Yeah. I guess in that same vein, as a little sidetrack here, I don't know. Have you seen some of the pictures of? The Frankenstein monster in the new Bride movie?
Oh no, but now I will.
He also has some just unnecessary tattoos.
No.
That I'm hoping that there is a reason. I'm hoping it's this is part this. It's he has the word hope in cursive on his chest, and I hope it's this was cut out of a person, this tattooed part of skin. If it's the monster went out and got himself a tattoo, it seems very silly to me. But
yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna stay cautiously optimistic about that one too. We'll obviously be talking about it as it arrives.
But it's got Christian Bale, so it can't be completely awful. Like Terminator Salvation or whatever, but...
And, Maggie Gyllenhaal, seems to be she does interesting stuff for the most part, so...
we're getting a Dark Knight, reunion a little bit.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know, we'll see, but, when those first pictures of the new Crow stuff came out, everyone was like, oh, no, this looks like Jared Leto Joker, but I don't know.
You know what this is? I just realized this. This is exactly the 1980s mohawk and leather jacket aesthetic.
Yeah.
Just done again, right?
Yeah, you're right.
This is what the kids do, right?
Yeah, it's Hollywood trying to look edgy and not really knowing how to do it, so they're just what if we give him a face tattoo? That'll make him look hip and...
Right.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
Right? It just makes you look like a douchebag. I've never seen anybody with a really good face tattoo unless they were Maori or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that has like a cultural reason for it and not just like I had a little bit too much to drink and walked past the tattoo parlor.
I made bad decisions. All right. So, let's get into this thing a little bit deeper.
Yeah. So, in perfect 80s fashion, we start out with like really intense intro music.
So intense.
And there's like sparks kind of like burning across the screen, spelling out the word steel in this like really metallic font.
Exactly. I love that freaking aesthetic from the 80s. Like, you always had the like chrome finish on everything for no reason.
Yeah, and it's so good. Like, it slowly spells out steel, and then right as it finishes, in like pretty pink cursive letters at the bottom, it just adds and lace.
Right. It's so good. So immediately we're going to get into that. The news is reporting this is the Danny Emerson trial. He did an essay on this lady named, by the way, Galatea Morton.
Yeah.
Can be any more on the nose?
Right.
Do you know the whole Galatea thing? Okay.
Yeah.
It's Daedalus, I believe, because Daedalus made everything back in the day. Apparently. He basically made a woman, a statue of a woman, and the gods gave it life.
Yeah. So, we'll obviously get into the connection there, but I mean, it's
Pygmalion.
The reason we're talking about this movie, like...
It was Pygmalion. I'm an idiot, because my lady, that's right.
Right, yes, yeah, that's right. That makes more sense. And it, like... It's kind of confusing. Like, people her nickname is Gailey. It, like, took me a little bit to figure out what people were saying, because, like, changing the A sound kind of threw me off as, like how that was her nickname, but...
right.
But she is...
to Gailey.
Yeah. So she's, like, a gifted, like, piano prodigy who's, like, at the prime of, like, her career's kind of starting out. And Danny Emerson is... like the heir to the Emerson like real estate empire. Yeah. And so of course, like even now I don't like the idea of like a highly publicized rape case does not seem like, I mean, like we get that with murder a lot, but usually it seems like when it comes to like sexual assault stuff, the media doesn't like talking about it, I feel like, especially if it was like a high profile man. I don't know. I mean, I guess that when there was the, what was that? The Brock Turner thing, that was kind of a big case. So I don't know. I mean, I guess we've never had anything quite like this where like both parties were sort of celebrities in a way.
Well, at least not like this, right? Because there was Me Too, and that was kind of after the fact.
Yeah. I guess this is not too far away from like the Johnny Depp, Amber Heard thing. Like, I mean, that wasn't a sexual assault thing, but it was definitely like celebrities doing violence to each other and being all over the news for a little while. Right.
But also, we have to draw attention to her brother, Albert Morton, is a NASA scientist. Why do we need to know her brother in the news?
Right. They specifically mentioned that he quit his job so that he could come home and support her in the trial and everything. Right. And
we're
it's
adding
like
a lot of narrative to this report.
Yeah, they're definitely using this as a lore dump, all kinds of backstory stuff.
Can we talk about Bruce Davison? Was he familiar to you?
Oh yeah, he's definitely one of those like that guy actors. He's just been in so many things. He usually plays this kind of character. Like, he's always like a very serious, kind of smart guy who's like
a little smarmy.
Yeah, slightly villainous, but not usually like full on evil. Just kind of like, like he plays like senators and stuff a lot. Like that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, especially ones that turn into goop. Thank you, Adam.
Yes, yeah, I was okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I mean, he has a long storied history, so.
Yeah, I was thinking of him from that, but then I was getting like the Senator and like Stryker from X-Men mixed up, and I was like, no, that wasn't him, but yeah, that's what it was. Those are, yeah, that's exactly who he was.
Yep, it's so good.
As the news, the editing here is pretty like cool. Like, we have like the news report, then we have like scenes from the the trial, and we also have flashbacks of the event, and it cuts between them really seamlessly in a way that like makes it fast paced and like gives you a lot of backstory in a way that, other than the little bit of clunkiness of like the journalist spelling a lot of stuff out, it feels like you're getting a lot of information in a way that feels pretty organic.
Right. The one mistake they make is that whenever they go a little bit further, they just retell you everything that basically happened and actually seeing it from her perspective.
Mm-hmm. And for what it's worth, when there are movies like this, there is sort of a necessity to depict some of the assault to give the revenge its poignancy, but this does a pretty good job of it being like, it's an unpleasant, violent scene, but it's not a graphically gratuitous scene. And it also gives us basically the, what we call her, Galbot? Gallibot? Yeah.
Basically, it gives her catchphrase.
Yeah, like, so it's not just Danny Emerson. It's Danny Emerson and his like whole crew of like bros, basically. It's just a bunch of Wall Street bros who like kind of hold her down. But is it actually Danny that says the line, or is it?
Because like the bros show up first and kind of surround her and start pushing her around because that's how assaults looked in the 80s apparently, or early 90s, and but she breaks off and runs towards this person who's at the other end of the alleyway, raising their arms up and as if they were inviting you in, almost a Jesus-like pose because he's backlit, right? Mm-hmm. But whenever she gets to him, he lifts her up as, your own personal Jesus would. But she knows that everything's going south the moment he says, pretty, so pretty. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, shit, this is another one.
Yeah. The scenes, like, the backlit and everything, it all feels very dreamlike. Like, it feels like we're not seeing the event happen. We're seeing her memory of the event as it happened. Exactly. Like, it's all a little, fuzzy, which which I appreciated because again that gives you the way to sort of portray it without having to be too gratuitous about it. It's the way she's processing the events. Once we kind of get to the end of that and sort of like the preliminary trial stuff, we get to the jury reading the verdict.
Which not good because they basically say we don't have enough evidence to convict him, so he's free to go.
Yeah. Which, I feel like this is one of those things like, the 80s was very much about like the tough on crime era. Yeah. And so obviously we're supposed to be like really angry, assuming that we didn't see what happens in the trial. But unfortunately, if there was insufficient evidence, then this is the result you would technically want. But obviously we know what actually happened. So obviously we don't want the rapist to get off here. And of course, the courtroom erupts. Like Danny and his people are all like celebrating. They're all excited.
Albert's pissed.
He's like almost gets like sent out in contempt. He's like yelling and angry and everything, as he should be. I mean,
court artist, just random court artist.
Yeah, we get a lot of shots of her, and it's like, what's her? Well, why are we spending so much time with her?
Yeah, she's clearly important.
Yeah, and in fact, even Albert goes over to her, and she has drawn like meticulous drawing of Galatea, and he takes it from her and rips it up, and he's like, you're not gonna exploit my sister anymore, it's all over. Right. I feel like we're kind of getting on the outs of the era of the court artists. I don't know if everybody is even familiar with that as a concept anymore now that like cameras are just allowed in courtrooms and stuff. Right. But I thought those were like, it's a neat thing. Like, it's an interesting aesthetic that it just feels like part of my childhood. You would see it on the news all the time, these like sketches of like the O.J. Simpson trial or whatever, and
that's where it really kind of seemed to pick up, right? Even though it apparently existed before that.
So I think then the next thing is like, everybody's kind of leaving. Danny Emerson even winks at Galatea as he leaves, which is just such a dick move. And Albert kind of tries to like escort Galatea out and protect her as like the journalists and stuff are swarming around.
Right. He even puts her in the stairwell.
Yeah, he like closes the door behind her and basically like, runs interference, tells the reporters like, leave her alone, like, give her privacy and everything. But But then when he goes back in the stairwell, she's gone.
Right. But we also get a shot of the boys celebrating in the limo, where Danny explicitly tells him, hey, you're not just my flunkies anymore. We're all equal partners in everything going forward. I wonder if he'll betray that because he's a scumbag.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, like shadows again.
Right. And they're all, they're like popping bottles in a limo, very, very different results from the trial here.
Right.
And so Albert, when he sees that the Galatea is gone, he goes up the stairs to see, where she went, which is telling right away. Like, if I had left someone in a stairwell, I would think they probably went downstairs and out. But he immediately thinks she went upstairs, and he's right.
Kind of knew her frame of mind, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he gets up to the roof, and she's there, and she's shocked at the results. She's crying, and she's kind of been like catatonic, in the trial. She's very like, in a state of like shock, and
well, especially she accuses him of, hey, you pretty much said they were going to go away because of this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she's like, I don't feel safe now. They're out there in the world with me, and he's like, I'll keep you safe. It's going to be okay. And she says, there's only one safe place now.
That's very important, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Weird.
Yeah. So of course, she jumps off the roof and
self-terminates.
Yeah, and Albert does the classic. Falls to his knees and yells no up at the sky.
But this is proof that Bruce Davison was too good for this movie, just because of the sheer pain you could see him writhing around on the floor.
Yeah, it's that's kind of like a joke scene now. Like we see it so much, like people parody it. Like the Star Wars one especially. But like this one, it feels real. Like it doesn't feel cheap. Right. And I think it's definitely. It's him. It's his acting abilities really selling it.
Right. Absolutely. But then, because, this movie is this movie, we cut to a shot of literally a sign that says, another Emerson mini mall coming soon. 5 years later, by the way, yeah.
Yeah. So this is right at that time, like the 80s was all prosperity and, all this sort of like corporate capitalist culture and stuff, and then there's that little bit of backlash of like, oh, this is developers are evil. This is around the time that like Donald Trump was in movies and stuff, but this movie is definitely on the side of like these guys are bad.
Yeah, it's like it knew the future.
Yeah, so that sign is in front of like this big old mansion, slightly run down, but still, a nice looking, old Victorian kind of house.
It's the kind of house everyone thought was normal in the 80s that everyone had, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
right,
this,
yeah.
Yeah. No one ever pictured the one-story shotgun house.
Exactly,
yeah.
And inside the house we see there's an old man who is kind of surrounded by Danny and his bros, and they're pressuring him to sign papers selling the house.
Yeah, it's a real shame what happened to his wife and all. Had the guy signed sooner, maybe it wouldn't have. So clearly they've killed his wife.
They say something about they say like, hey, we're really sorry to hear about her unfortunate accident, and he's like, right. It wasn't an accident, and they're like, well, who could say?
Can't prove it.
Right. So yeah, just the worst kind of 80s villains here. Beyond that, they even they are undercutting him. Like the offer originally was 60. Was it 60,000?
Mm-hmm.
Which is also crazy. That house would go for, easily 3 or 4 times that.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, 60,000 was still a pretty good number back then. But I mean, probably
True.
At least 100,000. Yeah. And it's also in Los Angeles, so maybe even 150. Well, I guess that would be $1 million home now, actually.
Right, yeah. I mean, probably.
Damn.
But they even undercut it and they went down to 50,000 because he didn't sign quick enough, and he's just in a position where he can't fight back or try to renegotiate. So, he signs the papers, and Danny's like, all right, you've got 12 hours to get all your shit out, or we're gonna level the house with you in it.
Right.
And he just strolls out, all badass. Like, I think him and the bros are out on the sidewalk. I just called them the bros for like the whole movie. It was like, eventually we'll slowly get all of their names.
Right, you don't get their names till they're about to die.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Really. We do get Toby though, because Danny immediately calls him the R word for not closing the deal quick enough. Right.
Yeah.
How dare you make me come out of my ivory tower to deal with these normies? Right.
Yeah, this should have been an easy sell. It's ridiculous that I had to get involved in this one. And so he's like, you got to handle it from here.
Right. And Oscar's like, yeah, we're really equal partners, aren't we? And, I do
right.
like what was the one dude's name? Austin.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. He basically says some of us are more equal than others.
Right, yeah. So Danny, he puts on his sunglasses and strolls off to his like fancy rich guy 80s car.
They all hop in Beamers. It's gross.
Yeah. Right, yeah. As they all kind of part ways, the one
this is Craig Semple.
His car, he's having like car troubles. So, like the alarm starts going off as he's driving. The radio keeps like flickering off and on. So he has to pull over. It's like it seems like the battery has died or something.
Right. Well, she specifically says it looks like it was overcharged or there was a power surge, is what she says. It's like, oh, she did this. She did this.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. Because so like he gets out and opens the hood as if he knows anything about what's going on in there, but then another car stops to help, and this beautiful woman steps out, and she's like, the camera is making sure that this is a sexy lady. Like she, it gets like the legs step out first, and the camera lingers on them, and it's just all very seductive. And she looks at the engine and says there's, it's charged, or that it's a power surge or whatever. And he's like, you know anything about cars? And she's like, I know enough to tell when a car's fucked.
Right. By the way, is it me? Like, am I crazy? Because I could swear that like it steps out and that's just Galatea, like with like curly or curled hair, slightly wavy hair, right? It feels that way. Is it a different actress?
It is at first. Yeah.
Okay.
She's similar enough though. Like it's not like that, because like at first I was like, oh, what's going? Like is she wearing a lot of makeup? Because you assume it's going to just be her.
Right.
But
it's close enough. Right?
Yeah. And she is like, well, since your car's messed up, like how about I give you a ride? And so he, of course, he needs a ride in general, and also a ride from a very sexy lady who's very flirty. Sure, absolutely.
He's looking for a different kind of ride.
And she's making sure that he knows that that's on the table. Like, as she's driving, she's, like, erotically stroking the gear shift and stuff. Like, it's
so weird that was a thing. Like, that was, like, a thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And she's like, I know a place nearby. And they go to, a nearby motel. Yeah. But it's like a classy one, like it's like when they go inside, it's not just like a shitty rundown room. It's that like 80s trashy classy kind of thing.
This is one that you'll find in Vegas, right? You're not paying $50 for just the rundown one. You're paying $100. It's slightly classy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a motel that has like a big bathtub, like
it has the heart-shaped mirror above the bed.
100%, yeah. And they start kind of like talking, and she's asking him a lot of questions about his job and his friend Danny. And he's just giving away information, like he's just not I guess, he doesn't think he has anything to hide.
But obviously she's dropping hints, right? She's like, I'm a bookkeeper. I keep things in balance and make sure people pay their debts. Like, oh, okay. It's weird you would say that, but okay.
Yeah, and like they start making out, but she keeps stopping to be like, so like, I bet you're like really close to Danny. Like you'd lie for him, you'd cheat for him, maybe even die for him. And he's like, yeah, maybe so. I don't know, like I never thought about it that way, but I mean, when you say it like that, and she's
not
like,
doing much actual thinking.
Right, like I feel like he'd be like, wait, why do you keep asking me so much about my boss? Like we're trying to like have sex here. Like what's going on? And she's like, well, I got something I need to show you. And then she does the Mission Impossible and peels her face off.
revealing another face underneath.
Yep. And this one is definitely Galatea. Yeah. And, he's like, wait, what? What's going on? And she just, grabs him and, hugs him really close. And all of a sudden, he's, vibrating with pain and blood starts splattering behind him.
She drill fucks him to death.
Yeah. Yeah, something pops out of his back, and it's, this big, elaborate drill thing. And, he falls to the ground dead. And she's got, a Go-Go Gadget drill that comes out of her chest, basically.
Really? She is Go-Go Gadget, just the female assassin version of that.
Right. And she picks up the torn up mask that she removed, so no evidence, and just strolls out.
We get a view of a grid system because we have to know now she is absolutely a robot if we couldn't tell beforehand.
Yeah, definitely. And we cut from that to the courtroom artist that we saw earlier. So yes, she is going to be part of the story.
A picture of a kid rubbing his head with a smoking gun. It's a weird
right.
picture.
Yeah, so we'll find out her name's Allison, and that she's kind of stopped doing the courtroom drawing stuff. She's a real artist now. So yeah, of course she's got an edgy sort of drawing.
Right. Well, this is and her thing, right? She's drawing pictures of kids living their life, which apparently involves a lot of drugs for these just kids, literal children under the age of 10.
Right.
And apparently promiscuous sex amongst kids. I feel like there's a crime for that, specifically.
Right. Thankfully, we don't see any of the sex pictures. We just see the drugs and the guns. But yeah, her agent's there, and he's like, yeah, I mean, I love what you're doing, but it's not going to, I appreciate it, but no one's going to, we're not going to be able to sell a book with these kind of drawings in it. So
yeah, because she's an artist, she specifically says, I won't castrate my art, which kind of comes back later on to a degree.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so, she's like, this is the real world. This is the, it's the edgy 80s, this is, I want people to see what's really happening on the streets. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I get it, but we also have to make money, and that's not going to work.
This is not going to sell coffee table books, right?
Yeah. And she's like, well, I'm not going to do another coffee table book of my courtroom sketches. I've moved on as an artist. And he's like, wait, I've got an idea. What if we have your courtroom sketches, and then we do a where are they now, and you go sketch new drawings of the people from the trials, what they're doing now. And, that'll give you this angle of, time passing, and you can kind of, that can be your, clever artistic way of using these pictures that, it seems like she's sort of made a name for herself. She's sort of famous for her previous book of courtroom sketches.
Right. Basically making her money off those previous things.
Yeah. So it's that deal where, she's like, I'm an artist. I want to grow into new things. And he's like, yeah, but we want to do the thing that made you famous because we know that sells. And so cleverly, he's like, here's a way where we can do both. And she's like, yeah, okay, that's kind of an interesting idea. I could maybe do that.
Didn't you have a boyfriend detective named Clippy?
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, yeah, I haven't talked to him in a while. I should check in, see what he's up to. I bet he's gotten really fat and grown a mustache now. And we immediately cut to a fat cop with a mustache.
I wouldn't call that guy fat.
He's a
donut.
Sure. Yeah, he's not at all fat. Yeah, if he's fat, I'm fat. But
right.
That's definitely what the movie's trying to they're juxtapositioning that, because then he walks past and then another guy walks through who's a very handsome guy.
Yeah, a guy who looks like an American werewolf, actually.
Yep. Yeah, it's nice to see him still getting work. Yeah, I mean, still, yeah, right.
David Naughton,
and he is Clippy. So, or what's his name's Clifford
Dunn.
Is it Holt?
No, Dunn.
Dunn. I knew it was a little short one syllable last name, but it becomes a running joke. It's never explained why, but everyone else, his name's Clifford, and only she calls him Clippy, and he hates it, but he puts up with it because he really likes her.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the police, they're investigating the motel drill murder that we just saw happen. and everyone's like, "What happened here? What drilled this giant hole in this guy's chest? That's very strange. Also, he still has his wallet and all his money, so it wasn't a robbery. This is a very strange murder here." And then as they're looking through his wallet, Clippy sees his business cards and is like, "Oh shit, this is one of Danny Emerson's friends. So this is going to be a more complicated situation."
Yep. We finally get the name of Craig Semple, and Danny Emerson. You gotta love it. So let's go to Danny Emerson and his boys. So immediately, he's like, "All right, so somebody's gonna have to pick up Craig's slack now that he's
right.
dead."
Yeah, I mean, which shows you right away what kind of guy he is. He does not give a fuck about this friend that died.
Right.
And I mean,
he doesn't have friends as much as he has toadies or servants. Yeah.
And they're really leaning into this business developer as evil. Like the boardroom is dark, and their logo is the globe being grabbed by this ominous, monstrous hand. He's just evil as hell.
Yeah.
But the rest of the bros
for the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah, not even then really, but still.
Right. And all the guys are like, "But he was our friend. We should be sad. He died."
Right. They literally call for a moment of silence.
Yeah. And Danny's like, "Yeah, he played hooker roulette for too long and he finally lost." And he's like, "Well, we could do maybe 30 seconds of silence."
Right. I feel like though, if you're with a hooker, it's bad business to drill your Johns to death.
Right.
That kind of stops the repeat business, right?
Yeah.
But as you said, he observes 6 seconds of silence.
Yeah, he agrees to 30, and then it's about 6, and they're like, "Was that 30?" And he's like, "Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's plenty of time. We're fine." Yeah. So they all sit down to continue with their meeting. And we cut back to the station where Clippy is now talking to the medical examiner. And this medical examiner guy. Yeah, I didn't recognize it. He looked kind of familiar, but I didn't look him up. But he's a really great addition to this movie. He's not in it much, but he adds a lot of comedic moments. He's just a really funny guy.
Yeah, David Lander. What was he in? There's a very famous show. I don't know why I can't recall it. I feel like an idiot. Well, Bob Newhart, obviously, and Barney Miller and stuff like that. But it wasn't Joan. It was Laverne and Shirley, of course. Yeah, he was Squiggy. Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley. And
gotcha.
He's been in so many other things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And he's great. He's he's just a medical examiner who is he's gotten to a point where he's kind of jaded on the gross stuff of his job. It doesn't,
now he just gets excited
it doesn't
when it's novel.
yeah, he's just having fun being a medical examiner. So they're making jokes about the death. Clippy's like, "What was the cause of death?" And he's like, "Well, a giant drill through the chest."
That kind of does right?
He's like, "I don't know if it was loss of blood or the giant chunk of his spine that got removed, which I don't know what killed him first."
Either one. I feel like this guy is definitely the kind that eats a sandwich over the body.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely
of that. Having spaghetti over the body.
Right. So they're talking, and then Clippy's boss comes over and is like, "Hey, come with me. I need to talk to you about something." And Clippy's like, "Okay, yeah." So they go to an interrogation room or an office kind of to the side in the station, and there's a woman there from the DA's office.
Right. This is the only scene we'll get with her. She's Agent Trips.
And she's basically like, we've been building a case against Emerson for a while, and we're really close to moving on him, so we don't want to spook him. So I know that this guy was one of his, his toadies or whatever, but don't fuck this up for us. Right. Keep this on the DL. Don't get wild with your investigation, because we've got something bigger. So now Clippy's kind of stuck in this place where he needs to investigate the case, but he can't be as aggressive. So we're kind of setting stakes here so that he can't just go all out as a cop in this movie.
Right. Absolutely. So then we actually get Allison makes a call to Clippy, and she's like, "Hey, I know we had a really bad breakup and all, but I also want you to do me a random favor, please."
Right. And like as he's like walking in, she's at his desk and she notices a business card or a photocopy of one of Craig's business cards and is like,
Yeah, this is one of the guys who did the R word.
Yeah. So she's like, she tells him about the book that she's working on, and then she's like, but what's going on with this? That was a case that I dealt with.
He just wants her gone. He's like, get out of here.
Yeah, he's like, one, we don't have resources to help you with your fun little projects. And two, as far as this one goes, I obviously can't comment on an ongoing investigation. I'm not telling you anything about that. And, she's like, but, I'm going to keep looking into this. Like, you can't stop me. And he's like, please. Like, he just had this meeting. He knows what's up. And he's like, just cool it. Like, leave it alone. And she's like, yeah, I'm not going to. And like heads out. And then we go back to Emerson's office from there.
Yeah. Oscar I think it's Oscar, is looking at a picture of all the guys together when one of them wasn't dead.
Yeah. And he's like, man, we used to be people used to call us the Five Musketeers.
Austin's like, you were the only one who called us that.
Yeah, no one ever called us and then we have a secretary who comes in and she's like, so we're gonna the secretaries are trying to pool money. We're gonna send flowers to Craig's family.
But man, she's so obvious. Like, she's so obviously not a normal secretary. Like, yeah. They couldn't signpost it hard enough.
Right. Yeah. Like it's so she's just they like cranked the sexy knob up a little too high for just generic background secretary. Like, they want us to notice her, Yeah. So of course, as soon as she walks out, that's what happens. Like the two guys start talking like, hey, when was the last time you dipped into the secretary pool? Haha. And
one guy's like, I don't shit where I eat. That's kind of a bad idea to have a office affair. Yeah.
And then they're talking about Craig, and they're like, should we start protecting ourselves? Like, is something coming after all of us? One death, it's unclear. Like, it could be completely a unique, its own situation, or maybe something's coming back to bite us.
So we're going to cut to a little bit later, and the guy, Mr. Toby Worth, is that his name? I know Worth is his last name.
Yeah, I think so.
So he's talking to a fucking government agent, and he's like, I'm ready to give them all over, man. Just give me protection. We're sending them away.
Right, yeah. Obviously, these guys are... They're realizing that it's every man for himself. Like, they're losing that whole loyalty to Danny at this point.
Well, apparently also to everyone else.
Right,
at least this guy.
Yeah.
But we also get a shot of that secretary doing her makeup just slightly earlier, and we're like, oh, this is where she's going to get this guy, right?
Yeah. But no, we hold off for a little bit, and instead we go back to the police station, where now Clippy's boss is talking to him, and, Clippy's like, the court reporter chick, she's going to start nosing into stuff.
Right, and the chief's like, great, keep her busy.
Yeah. That's now your new job. Like, stop investigating the murder and just run interference on this girl to protect the DA's case. And Clippy's like, that's going to be... we have, like, a history. And he's like, I don't care. You tell me about the history later. Like,
after the job, yeah.
Yeah, do your job. And he's like, okay, fine. From there, we cut to Allison's apartment, where she gets a knock at the door, and it's Clippy.
A bottle of wine.
Yeah, he's got a bottle... I thought this was pretty smooth. He's got a bottle of wine, and he's like... I think you left this behind at the station when you visited me earlier. And she's like, I don't think so. I don't remember having a bottle of wine. And he's like, that's weird, because I wasn't at my desk before you were there. Where could this bottle of wine come from? Like, they're being very flirty. It's kind of cute. She's like, all right, come on in. I guess, if it was in the lost and found, we might as well make use of it, right? And then we go back to Worth, who is...
right, he's just like, hey, we need you to put on this tape recorder in the middle of the fucking bar.
Right. And Worth's like, yeah, let's just go back to the back alley. Like, we can't do this right here. So they...
this is where the secretary's going to get him. I know it. I just know it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we see her like kind of, giving him like she's watching him as he leaves, like very like they want us to notice she's noticing him. Mm-hmm. And then we go back to Clippy and Allison. The drawing, was it of Allison?
Yes, it was of her drawing herself. It's very meta.
Yeah, she's got like a nude self-portrait that she's showing Clippy. And he's like, yeah, looks good to me. Like, yeah. That's definitely a move, like here's what I look like naked. Are you interested?
Right. And she's just kind of talking about the case. She's talking about the case and all of her art, and like she's rambling a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, because this is a movie, he kisses her mid speech, I guess, to shut her up or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Definitely, yeah. And so then we go back to the alley where the agent is trying to hook up the recording device. And Worth is like,
weird in his suitcase.
Yeah. Yeah, like he's getting the recorder out, and there's just a pair of high heels in there, like bright pink high heels.
So it's like, oh, you're one of those FBI agents.
Right, yeah.
You're following the steps of your predecessors. No,
yeah.
Apologies, I guess.
And Worth is like, because he just has to be a sketchy dude. He's like, so, well, is there any like under the table money I might get out of this deal? And yeah, like you should be happy to just get immunity out of this. But this agent's like, yeah, he's like, sure, yeah, don't worry, we will take care of you. Yeah.
But he starts like coming on to Worth. Yeah. Like he's starting to flirt with him.
Yeah, he says something like, in my line of work, I deal with a lot of real lowlives, real scumbags. So I'm very deeply moved to see, that you just want to do the right thing. Like it's, it's touching.
It's like I want to treat you well because of that, and there's an implication hanging over it.
Yeah, and suddenly the agent
like, I'm not into this, man.
Right, and the agent just tears his shirt open.
This is the best shot.
It's so weird.
His chest inflates to a pair of breasts.
Yeah. It goes from a very flat, masculine presenting chest to just suddenly having boobs. And then, last time, she like pulled the face off, tore it off like a mask. This time, like light.
Sailor Moons.
Yeah, like light flashes and cracks, and the face just like disintegrates and melts away. And but there's Galatea. Yeah. And of course Worth's like, wait, how? I thought you were dead. And she's like, did Danny tell you that? Look how wrong Danny was.
Pins him to the wall by the neck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in a way that's like almost a little sexy, but then she just keeps pushing, and like until his like it's a really like a weird, it's a really cool shot. Like she doesn't tear his head off, she doesn't choke him to death, she just pushes until his head falls off. Like she just melts through his neck and spinal cord until the body falls down and the head's just hanging there.
Right. And it's like his eyes are moving and it's like he's trying to say something, and then the head falls down like a Wile E. Coyote skit.
Yeah.
It's wild. Like, I mean, content warning if you're sensitive to that, because there's little dangly neck bits afterwards.
Yeah, I feel like this period of like, late 80s sort of action movies leaned into, like you think of like RoboCop or Terminator or something. Like I really do appreciate this era where like gore and action were like friends, and like it's just fun. Like in these kills, they're all kind of clever and different, so yeah, it's. You've never seen anything quite like this.
No,
this
honestly,
murder.
You haven't seen anything since.
Right, yeah.
Which is wild.
We go straight from this murder to Allison's apartment where she and Clippy are in bed. They have
smoking cigarettes, so you knew what happened. No,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "All right, fine, I'll help you with your project."
Right.
They start kind of talking about like what she needs, but then
he gets a call on the beeper.
Yep. Nice fucking 80s beepers. Movie thing. We got a beeper. So he, if you don't know how beepers work, which probably some people listening here probably don't.
So before cell phones, these landline phones required you to do, to call people back. But these beepers were kind of an early version of that, right? So someone would call that number. It would actually get a ring. You wouldn't be plugged into a wall or anything like that. But it's just their phone number. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, like all you would get on the beeper is just a phone number to call back. So he does, and, of course, it's, that there's another case. Like, he's got another murder to investigate. Somebody's out sick, he tells Allison, so he's got to pick up the slack.
Well, she's a little upset. Apparently, this is what caused the big rift in their relationship to begin with, because she's like, yeah, of course you have to go do your job. And it's like, yes, he has to go do his job.
Yeah. Which I get, I get it also, that she'd be like, well, we're trying this new thing. We just had sex. Like, it'd be nice to, like, lay around and cuddle and talk, like, he has written something down on a pad, the address that he needs to go to. He tears it and he leaves. And then, of course, right away, she does the classic thing of taking one of her, like, charcoal pencils and, like, shading over where he had written. And
he's rubbing.
Yes, you can see the address and immediately leaves to follow after him.
That's amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, not even a second after he leaves, she's like, I'm on it.
Right. And it's funny. So, like, we cut right from that to the crime scene. Where Clippy is investigating, and of course this is the beheading that we just saw. This movie is quick, like we don't drag our feet between we saw the murder, so it's time to investigate. He gets there, he sees that it's another one of Emerson's friends, and he's like, oh shit, this is really bad.
This is all connected.
Yeah, like, it was bad enough that the one, but now I know the DA's on the, this is going to be really bad. This is going to get complicated.
So how can we make it worse? Allison shows up immediately.
She is not sneaky at all. She's just right there asking questions, bothering people. And he's like, I told you to leave this alone. Like, this is not good. You are going to get mixed up in something. You're going to get hurt. And he's like, just go home. You didn't see anything. You don't know anything. Stay out of this. Like, people keep ending up dead. Do you want to end up dead? And she's like, I just want to, this is important. I need to know what's going on.
Yeah. By the way, did you notice the Confederate flag in the bar?
Yes, I did.
This is a bad place. We don't go here.
Yeah. So there was a time when the Confederate flag was just kind of normalized. Like, it didn't necessarily.
South.
Yeah.
By the way, this is in fucking L.A. What do they care about?
Right.
Confederate South.
L.A. had nothing to do with the Confederacy in any way.
Right. I don't think there was an actual American California at that time.
No, I don't think so, yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's always been a symbol of the Confederacy, which is tied to slavery and racism. Yeah. But there was just this time where it was sort of normalized, and it was just like, this means I like country music. And, like, it's just kind of...
That's what they were saying out loud.
Mm-hmm, yeah, like... and then obviously there were the people who, like, were more tied to it in that way. But, like, like, I have my family is all very rural. They're, redneck hunters, that kind of thing. My brother has a Confederacy tattoo that he probably should get covered up at this point. He's had it for a long time. But yeah, this was that time period where it doesn't necessarily mean that we should be afraid of racism happening at this bar, but obviously still not a good look, especially looking at it from today's lens. Yeah,
coincidentally, I think a year or two later, after this was released, there was the Rodney King riots. So,
yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's definitely good to see it sort of like specifically looked at as we know what this means now, and like, if you see one, what the people are trying to say, and we can try to get rid of it from like public spaces and government buildings and stuff. I appreciate that things have moved in that direction as far as all that goes. But yeah, different time. Like, obviously, when we watch all these old movies, it feels like we have to say that a lot. That like, oh, things were different back then. But yeah, in this case, yeah, it's definitely worth noting at least.
So then we cut to Galatea walking into a lab with Albert, and she pulls off her scalp.
Yeah. A classic thing to show that this is, if you had any doubts that she's fully a robot and not just like a cyborg, like we can see inside her head. It's all, there's glowing shit going on in there, little lights and LEDs and stuff.
Yeah, she's got like this weird glowing like liquid ball of brain inside of her head.
It's just like green ooze or something. It's and
that's the science bit. It has to be extra green and glowy.
And the lab is just so 80s, you know. It's very like big computer banks and stuff, you know. And Albert, like the brain part, he like connects something to it and downloads some data from it, and watches. He's got a video monitor, and he's like, okay, play back, you know, what just happened, basically. And he watches the murder, and he's like, yeah, I love
right, like he's enjoying this. Like, this is a sexual thing for him now.
Yeah, like when he watches it the first time, it's like, that's weird, and then he's like, play it back, but slower. It's like, no. Okay, that's when it's like, okay, this is a horny thing. Like, he is into this.
This man is horny for vengeance.
Yeah. And we go from that back to Emerson HQ, where the two remaining bros are talking about the, you know, now there's been 2 murders. That now it's no longer a coincidence, you know, and they're like, what's going on, Danny? Like, this is like,
one of them makes the comments, don't lose your head, and everyone starts laughing. It's like, gallows humor. I know that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're all trying to figure out, like, they all know now something is up. We don't know who's after us, but somebody's after us.
Right. And kind of the unasked question is kind of, Danny, is this you? Are you cleaning up loose ends?
Yeah. They definitely, like, they're asking him, like, how can we protect ourselves? But also they're like,
from you.
How can we ingratiate ourselves with us so that, you know, if you have some doubts about our loyalties, we can take care of that so that you don't. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like, we don't exactly trust each other, but we're all we've got, so we're gonna circle the wagons and hope for the best. And so we go from that back to Allison, who's again talking to her agent, and you know, she's like, there's something's going on here. There's been 2 murders. I think it's Danny. I think he's tying up loose ends. She's set up a meeting. She's going to talk to Albert. Right. And, you know, she's like, I want to see if he'll let me have access to the case files. Maybe I can figure something out that the cops overlooked.
Right. There's even the suggestion, like, I think it maybe Duncan, her editor, is kind of like, so why would he kill his own alibi? Like, that's kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
I like how this guy just gets drug in as a fellow investigator. He's just a fucking editor, you know?
Yeah, he has no, like, I mean, he wants her to succeed because it'll get him money, but, like, he doesn't need to be this involved. He's getting into trouble, like, by accident here. Like,
sure
it's, you know,
is.
So we go from them back to Emerson's office, where now Clippy has arrived. He's investigating.
There's a comment of, I guess you're the 3 Musketeers now, commenting on the 5 Musketeers.
Yeah, he's like, because the other, you know, the guy's like, yeah, they used to call us the 5 Musketeers, and, you know, he's like, Clippy's like, well, now you're the 3, and he's like, oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, I like that. He's like, that's the actual one. That makes more sense than this silly thing you made up. And
we get
then
Miss Fairweather again.
Yeah, the same, like, you know, unnecessarily attractive secretary, and she's like, we're gonna raise money again for Worth's flowers this time.
Yeah.
And Harbolt's like, he's trying to, you know, flirt with her, and he's like, okay, go around the office, but, you know, I know it's pretty close, and sometimes if you ask for too much money from people, they kind of get a little stingy, so if the pool is less than it was last time, just come to me. I'll make up the difference.
Right, but make sure it's after hours when not a lot of people are here. And we can do stuff that illicitly.
Exactly, yeah. And she's like, "Oh, that's very generous of you." And you know, so she walks out, and then Clippy is about to head out too, and he's like, "You know, you should probably be pretty careful because something's going on, and I'm investigating, but I can't be everywhere at once, and you know, there's probably an axe hanging over your head at this point."
Right. So Allison and Duncan show up at Dr. Morton's home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has enough sense to stay in the car while she is walking around this man's house.
Yeah. And Albert does a pretty good job here of, like, you know, they ask him about, like, the recent murders, and he's like, you know, I don't care. I mean, I don't have anything to, like, I don't feel sorry for those guys, but I'm not interested. You know, my sister's gone. I have no dog in this fight anymore. Like, I couldn't care less. I'm not following the news about them, whatever, And Allison's like, well, can you help me get access to the case files? And he's like, no, I don't want this dug up again. I am moving on. I have to. Which obviously is a lie, but he does a good job of, like, selling it.
Right. He even tells her, leave it alone. Don't bring up the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she's like, but I think it's Danny. Like, I think he's getting away with something. And Albert's like...
Morton just... At this point, Morton just has to walk away, right? Because he's like, yeah!
Yeah.
They're going to get this motherfucker finally.
Yeah.
His own friends.
I could just, like, I have sort of started sort of like an avalanche here that I don't even have to really do anything with anymore.
Yeah, but Morton doesn't leave anything half-finished. He makes sure to finish everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, he's just pretty much like, I said good day, sir, kind of sends her out.
But she realizes, oh, wait, Harbolt, a.k.a. Oscar, he was the third one to testify. The other guys died in order of testifying. Yeah. So he's next. He's on the chopping block.
Yeah. So she leaves and, she tells her, her agent that, she wants to go back to Emerson's office and try to talk to him.
Yeah. Then we get a great bit between Clippy and the doctor or the coroner.
Yeah. He's like so excited about this one. Like,
right. He's like, he was decapitated and strangled at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Like he
calls it a Baroque murder.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, like, as he's talking, he keeps getting louder. Like, he's a mad scientist, basically. Like, he's, like, yelling, like, how cool this was at the end. And then, like, when he's like, oh, oops. Like, I kind of got a little over. It's like, it's the same thing as, like, when somebody asks me about something I'm really excited about, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, I just talked too much about a thing that they didn't care about, and I feel weird now.
Oh, that neurodivergence. That makes sense. That's why I like this guy. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but obviously Clippy is like, oh shit, are you okay? Do I have to worry about you?
Yeah.
And he's like, I just get really excited when there's novel ways that people kill each other, Yeah. I've been doing this for so long, it's been boring.
Yeah. And so then we go back to the Emerson office where the secretary is talking to Harbolt.
Harbolt is talking to her breasts.
Right. He writes her a check for $500 and she's like, whoa, that's way more than the difference. And he's like,
right. Get yourself something nice.
Yeah, you're doing a kind thing here, so I just paying it forward here. Save a little bit for yourself.
No ulterior motives at all.
Right, yeah. And then he gets a call from his secretary, in the little desk box intercom thing, that there's a woman downstairs named Allison to talk to him, and she's like, should I send her up? And he's like, no, send her away. I'm busy. I've got something to do. Right, yeah. So, the downstairs secretary is like, no, he can't see. You'll have to come back another time. And Allison immediately, she's like, okay, and then immediately just tries to go through a door to sneak in.
Duncan tries to run interference. He's like, hey, what's that there on your screen? And she's both, and the secretary's like, I'm not having this shit. No, ma'am.
Yeah.
And like locks the door before she's able to get to it.
Yeah, so they send her away, and then back upstairs, the secretary is like, she's making sure he knows she's into it too. She's like, well, which it seems silly. Like, they're in his office. Like, this is as secluded as you can get. But she's like, I know a place. And he's like, oh, yeah? And she's like, the secretary break room. Let's go over there. And he's like, right. All right, let's do it.
Yeah, it's like she's luring him somewhere. It's going to be even harder for people to find him.
Right. So there's like a big table in the break room, and she lays him down on it and straddles him.
They're going at it too. Like,
it gets hot and heavy real fast. They're making out. Meanwhile, we see Allison is in the parking garage where she's been kicked out, and she sees a freight elevator and is like, maybe that's my chance. Her agent is smart enough to be like, I am gonna wait down here. I'm not following you. Yeah.
So we're going to go back to Harbolt and Miss Fairweather, and they're still going at it, and he feels like he's accomplished something special, and she's like, yeah, you absolutely have, and yeah,
this one's so good. She, so this is where Galatea reveals that, that the secretary, as we all knew was going to happen.
But here's the thing. So she pushes him on the table, right? And, like, she's still riding.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, maybe this will be, a good way to go out. Nope. Because when she reveals she is Galatea, she then says, basically, I'm going to kill you and kill all your friends. But also, she wants to give him something, or she wants something to remember him by.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, is she going to have a baby? Like, that's a weird thing to do, robot.
And yeah, and so as you said, like he's a little scared, but he's also like, well,
turned on.
Still had sex, right? Like he's still into it. And all of a sudden,
the praying mantis mindset.
Yeah, and then there's just like a sound.
It's a buzzing sound.
There's a buzzing sound, and then the buzzing sound becomes like a slurping sound.
Yes.
And we see his face, and it's just like he's kind of in pain, but still kind of into it, maybe a little bit.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie. I thought she castrated him.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Kind of, but not really. Turns out.
Yeah, because that's what I wrote. It seems like he's just been castrated by a robo-vag, which, like you said, it's sort of that, but the next thing we see is Galatea kind of like slipping out, like leaving, and as she's leaving, she sees Allison being like chased out again by secretaries. Then we see down in the parking garage, Allison's agent is waiting around, and Galatea appears, and he's like, wait, I normally, I wouldn't, I know it's creepy to be like a dude talking to a lady in a parking garage, right. But
you're really attractive and you look familiar.
Yeah, you look very familiar. And she kind of, stops, and he's like, I'm sorry, I thought you were someone else. And so she starts to walk off.
Then doesn't he say Gally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she turns,
shit.
And he's like, fuck, it is you. And then we just cut away. And it's like, oh no, that's not good. Back up in the office, Allison makes her way into that break room and finds Harbolt. And it's not just that he's been castrated. Like, we do see that his crotch is bloody.
I think that she drained him, like, of all of his fluids.
Yeah, his precious bodily fluids.
She did take something to remember him by.
Yeah, he's like all shriveled, like he looks like a raisin. His face is shriveled up even, like she has drained him. Which the science here, I don't think that this is possible in any way, but it looks cool and weird, and like it's great for this movie.
Like, the only thing I could think of is that she has one of those things that you find in the mortician, the basement of mortician's office.
Yeah, where they
drains the blood.
Yeah.
But that's record, man.
Right.
Plus, she's got to go I don't know. I don't want to know the physics of this. I'm going to mess with myself on that.
Allison, obviously freaked out by this, rushes back down to the parking garage, and she finds her manager or agent or whatever.
He's surrounded by a bunch of people.
Yeah, they're all trying to help him, and she's like, oh no, like he's, I led him to this. Like, this is my fault,
We find out she broke his neck. At least it was something, semi-quick.
Yeah, not as brutal as what happened to Harbolt.
It's just kind of like you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, my man.
Yeah. And then we cut right from that back to Albert's lab, where he is watching the playback, as he loves to do.
But now he's got all three of their deaths on screen at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, you see that like sometimes on the internet stuff where like there'll be like the guys who watch like 8 different porns at the same time. Like
that's a level of ADHD that I haven't unlocked yet.
Yeah.
Just all that focus.
Yeah. But I mean, he's so focused that he happens to notice on the newest video there's Allison in the background, and he's like, that's the girl who was bugging me earlier. She's not giving up. She's gonna keep being a thorn in our sides.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take that one out, right?
Yeah. We go right from that to Allison, who is being comforted by Clippy.
I don't know if she's being comforted. Like, he's coming down on her pretty hard. He's like, it's your fault Duncan's dead now. If you had just stayed away.
Yeah, like he at first he's just kind of like holding her or whatever, but like she's like, it's got to be Danny. He's or somebody working for him. And Clippy's like, it doesn't matter. You're an artist. I'm a cop. Let me deal with this. Your friend died because you wouldn't stay out of it, and I told you that this was going to happen. It's going to be you next time. Just please leave it alone. He is coming down hard on her, but this is one of those things where it's like,
it's tough
for
love.
your own good. Like, yeah. I want to scare you into not making more bad decisions.
Yeah, I wonder if that ever worked. Ever.
Right, yeah. And then we go straight from that back to Albert. He's eating dinner and having a glass of wine, and we hear the Moonlight Sonata being played.
Right.
And
turns
of
out
course,
it's diegetically.
Yeah, it's Galatea or Robo Galatea. He like gets up from his plate and walks over to her as she's playing, and he's like, "It was beautiful," and she's like,
"It's missing."
Was
something.
It's something's not right, and he's like, "No, nothing's missing. I would know. Like I could tell if every note was right where it needed to be. Everything was perfect." And she's like, "Maybe that's it. Maybe that's what was wrong." So we're getting the sort of divergence here where like he's the scientist and he wants everything to be precise and perfect. He appreciates the precision of her as a robot, but she still has a little bit of her pianist feelings, and she's like, that's the whole thing. Like, you can program music to be perfect, but it's the soul of a person playing it and it being slightly imprecise that really gives it the feeling there. And obviously he's like, stop worrying about feelings. That's not what you're here for. So, obviously they're kind of on different pages now, which is, concerning him a little bit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like for the longest time, he's basically had full control over her. And now she's asking, did I ever have any friends? Was there anyone out? And it seems like he didn't know. It's kind of like the only implication is, I was your only friend, I think.
Yeah, it seems like, he cared about, which may have been true, like it didn't seem like there were a lot of people there supporting her, which, a lot of times when you have people who like dedicate their entire lives to a very specific pursuit, you have like Olympic gymnasts or pianists or violinists, seem like that happens a lot.
Sometimes you ain't got time for friends.
Yeah. And, this, I feel like, is where this becomes very much a Frankenstein story, like where she's like, I am longing for a feeling of humanity. Like maybe when I was a human, I was sort of robotic in the way that I did things. And now that I'm a robot, I want to feel like a human. I want to have friends. I want to play music the way a person would.
I kind of want to see the backstory of this movie made, because it almost feels like a little bit like a House of Usher. Where the brother and sister are almost in love to a degree, but not really. Mm-hmm. But they're also extremely driven. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you've got, this virtuoso pianist and a NASA robotics expert, like these are people who have drive to get to like the top of their fields.
Mm-hmm. What were their parents like?
Yeah. And Galatea also says like, the woman that was at the house that you talked to, I saw her at the Emerson office. What's going on with her? And he's like, no, don't think about her. Don't worry about her. She's like, was she my friend? And he's like, no. This isn't what you're here for.
Yeah, she was just an artist who drew you, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Then we go back to the Emerson boardroom, and now we've got the one surviving bro, what we finally get his name.
Norman Austin.
Yes. And he's by himself in the boardroom getting himself a drink.
But he gets a jump scare from Danny.
Yeah. He's scared because, like, again, they, the friends are like, is it someone in our circle or someone out of our circle that's doing this? And here's Danny. Like, am I about to die? And, Danny's like, we need to think. We need to figure this out. Like, we can work together. And Austin's like, I want to get out. Like, I want to leave the country. Like, I need to get to safety. And Danny's like, oh, you think it's me, don't you?
Right.
And Austin's like, I'm not saying it's you. I'm just saying it's dangerous to be around you.
Right.
So
people are dying around you, buddy.
Yeah. So either way, I feel like this isn't where I want to be. Danny's like, I can't afford to have you running off. If you start running your mouth, that could lead to trouble for me. So I'm going to keep you around, whether you like it or not.
Right. You're not going to go anywhere, buddy.
So now, we've got this mutually assured destruction thing with the last two survivors. And we go from them back to Clippy waking up in Allison's bed, and she's gone.
She left him a Dear John bear, basically.
Yeah. She's left a note that says she's going to go talk to Austin, the last survivor. Is it Austin Norman or Norman Austin?
Norman Austin.
Okay, yeah. Because she says I'm going to go talk.
Names, that's all that matters.
Yeah, because I think the note says I'm going to go talk to Norman.
Yeah.
And Clippy's like, fuck. Like, again, she's not listening to me. She's going right into the danger. I got to go help her.
She's fucking with Emerson's boys.
Mm-hmm. And so we go from that right to Norman talking to Allison, and he's freaking out, and she's like, listen, like, you can still save yourself. Like, I can connect you with the police. You just got to tell them everything
before she does that, though, we get an ominous shot of a guy in a jumpsuit revving up the chopper to get Norman the fuck out of there. Because he said, fuck it. Danny may be coming after me, but I'm still going to try.
Right, yeah. So she's like, I got people outside. I can get you to safety. You just have to tell the truth. You know, this is how the police will protect you.
But we get surprised by a guy. Danny. Danny shows up.
Danny strolls right in, and it's like, oh, fuck. Like, this is bad. And Danny's like, Norman, why don't you step outside? I'll talk to you here in a minute. I need to catch up here with this lady. So, obviously, Norman's like...
Have you seen Godfather Part 2? The Fredo scene? Okay.
Yeah. And Danny's like, so who do you work for? Are you FBI, CIA? He, just goes through the whole alphabet soup. And he's like, I don't really care. It doesn't matter what agency you work for. You can't touch me. No one can touch me. He thinks he's invincible, Well,
he's kind of putting on a show, right? Until Allison leaves, and he's like, fuck, and knocks all the books off.
Yeah, he's a little scared, but he doesn't want anybody to know it.
Right. He's a great villain for sure.
Yeah, he really is. Like, he's just, again, it is very much like a classic sort of like 80s black and white villain. Like, there's nothing about him that's sympathetic. Yeah. We definitely know he's the bad guy. Meanwhile, outside we see Norman, he's like rushed out to the waiting chopper, and he's like, maybe I can still get away. Maybe this is my chance.
Well, it's like one of Danny's guys even tries to be like, hey, Mr. Austin, you can't go near the chopper. You're supposed to get in the car.
Yeah. And
we get another surprise.
Yep, there's Galatea, not in any kind of disguise this time. Doesn't matter.
She's in the one guy's jumpsuit.
Mm-hmm.
The chopper pilot's jumpsuit.
And she, grabs the Emerson's guard or whatever and throws him to the side, and then goes over to Norman, and he's like, "Wait, just I can explain or whatever." He's trying to just stop
I'll give
her.
You anything.
Yeah, and she just grabs him and just picks him up, and just like he gets like half his head chopped off in the helicopter blades.
By the way, everyone else gets like their moments, right? He just gets fucking head chopped off.
Yeah. There's no sort of like, she's not gonna tell. It seems like for the most part she wants them to know what's going on, and like, I'm gonna make you feel the way I felt for a second, and know that you are about to die. But no time for that here. He gets the like, is it Dawn of the Dead? Where the guy gets,
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead. Yeah. But she just picks him up. It's real great. Like, it just.
He gets a really close shave. Too close, actually.
Yeah. That's when Allison comes strolling out, and she Galatea just drops the halfway decapitated guy, and Allison's like, wait. I think she calls her Gailey at that point too. She's like, Gailey? This is where we find out that Galatea is a little less autonomous than we really thought. Like, we see that Albert is in a van, and he's like, run.
He's kind of controlling her.
Yeah, it's like voice command kind of thing. So Galatea starts running, runs up some stairs, and she's on like rooftops, and we get like a chase of Allison like following after her.
I feel like that's a bad move after you saw her just lift a guy up into a chopper blade. But who am I? I'm not a protagonist, I don't think.
Right. And it's like they're kind of cat and mousing across the roof, and eventually Allison like is looking around. She lost track of her, and then she turns around and there's Galatea like right behind her.
Pushes her.
Yeah.
Off the roof.
Yeah, she falls, but like catches like a fire escape ladder, and she's just like hanging there. And Galatea is like watching her, and then at the very last second, as her fingers slip, she grabs her hands and starts to like lift, or not, doesn't grab her hands. She grabs her head, right?
She grabs her wrist, but brings her up and holds her head.
Yeah,
but
so she's just like,
let her go.
Yeah, just drop her. This is it. And again, Allison's like, Galatea, and she's like, wait, you know me?
Are we friends?
Yeah, like it kind of gives her pause, and Albert is still like yelling, like, drop her, drop her. Yeah. And then we just cut away from that to, it's like a little later, Clippy and the other cops are investigating this crime scene.
Right. He specifically says, where the hell is Allison?
Yeah, we see, he sees her car, and he's like, fuck, like, what is going on? Like, there's no sign of her. And we cut from that to, Albert's surveillance van is now speeding down the highway. Albert's driving.
Allison's tied up.
Yeah, Galatea is in the back, and Allison is there with her, tied up. And Galatea's like, so were we friends? How do you know me? And it's like, I feel like a lot of times you'd have, she'd be like, yeah, we were friends. We were best friends.
Yeah.
But Allison, she's like, no, I know who you were, but we never really spoke. I drew your picture for TV. So like I spent a lot of time around you, but like we were never close. Which I feel like is maybe more endearing in a way, like that Allison's not lying to her.
Yeah. She's being honest and, being vulnerable, especially in a bad situation.
Yeah.
But they don't have too much time to worry about that because Morton announces, we're here.
Yeah.
This is it. This is the last one.
Yep. And so he gets in the back and he's like, why are you involved? What are you doing? Like, why won't you just leave us alone? And Allison's like, I mean, I get it. I agree with you. Those men deserve to die. But I don't. But what you're doing isn't right. Like, you're using a dead girl to, to take out your revenge, and that's not fair to her memory. And he's like, well, it's not fair that she died and the guys who caused it are still alive.
Right.
So
they're
like,
not punished at all.
Yeah, they've got sort of like differing ideas about, how things should have happened.
Right. And of course, Galatea is like, well, so, I don't like killing people, so maybe we can stop. And he's like, just kill the one guy, and no more killing after tonight. It's all done.
Yeah, in fact, like she's like, what happens after that? And he's like, I'll write you a new program. And she's like, what, more killing? And he's like, no, you'll get to be yourself.
You. Yeah.
And she's like glad to hear that.
But he creepily rests his head in her lap.
Yeah. Again, kind of this vague hints of like an incestuous connection there. We cut from that to the boardroom where Danny is all alone now.
He is packing heat, though.
Yeah,
he's got a shotgun, his revolver. He's half drunk.
Yeah, he's kind of like falling asleep. He's like scared for his life here. He can't, he's trying to protect himself, trying to stay vigilant, but eventually you got to sleep.
Right. Well, he also has his own little his drunken business meeting or board meeting with the guys.
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah, it's really good. He's like, all right, any new business? Nope. Okay. What about any old business? And that's when Galatea comes strolling in from the shadows, and she's like, Mr. Chairman, I have something I'd like to discuss with the board.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And
he's like, no, I'm fucking drunk. This is not real.
Yeah. This is the thing that they've both been building to, and she's like, you're just a man. You're so small. Like, this is what I've been scared of all this time. And he's like, you're nothing special either. Like, I'm not going to be afraid of some ghost. And so he
shoots her, shotguns her.
Yeah, hits her with, like, I think 2 blasts, and her chest bursts open, and we see all kinds of wires hanging loose and everything. But it's not enough to actually kill her.
Right,
so
but I think this is when he knows, oh no, she's a robot. She's real.
Yeah, this is not a ghost. Something really bad is coming my way. So he goes running. She starts to follow him, and then we see
Allison in the van. She's breaking free, like, quietly somehow. Was he just using duct tape? I feel like that's a bad call.
Yeah, she's, like, slowly, like, either broken through the tape or loosened whatever's the bindings are anyway.
Right, but there's a convenient wrench right beside her. And
a comically large wrench. It is like a stupid wrench. I don't know what you would actually be fixing with this wrench.
The actual car engine, I guess, or the van engine. That would be about it.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks like the guy.
Yeah, because of course, Albert is watching all this stuff go down through, Galatea's vision, and yeah, so he gets knocked out.
Right. Now, if this was real life, she would have killed that guy with that wrench. It was too big to not have killed him.
Yes. Right. And so she sees that that Albert has been, like, trying to control Galatea through this thing. Then we again see, like, the grid, Galatea vision. And, like, a screen says, like, emergency self-guidance mode, I think is what it says.
Engaged. Yep.
Yeah, so now that, there's no person controlling her, she's got to, sort of be autonomous.
Right. And she feels that. So she's like, that's kind of, she doesn't say anything, but the actress conveys that something weird has happened. And she's realized
Yeah. She's not used to being in control of herself. Mm-hmm. But she still kind of, she follows Danny. Like, she knows this is still what I'm supposed to do.
And it seems like she set up traps or not traps, but, like, she's funneling Danny onto the roof, it feels like, because he goes into the stairwell and there's all kinds of desks and chairs and cabinets just blocking his way up and down the stairs.
Yeah. He only has one way to go. So, yeah, either Galatea has done this beforehand or he did this to try to block himself in. But either way, it's not a good situation for him now.
I feel like if you're running from something, you want as many exits as possible.
Right, yeah. And we see that Allison is watching all this play out through Galatea's eyes, and then is like, "Oh fuck, I gotta catch up to them. I have to try to stop this." We have Danny running around through his, like, sort of kettled situation, and Galatea doing, like, the Terminator, Michael Myers slow walk, like, she just knows she's gonna catch up.
And Allison somehow trailing behind Galatea, following her.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got, like, a chain going on.
Yeah, and then when they get to the roof, they're all sort of running around trying to, everybody's trying to, like, do their thing, and suddenly Danny manages to sort of loop back around, and suddenly he has Allison held hostage with a gun to her head.
Right. And then Galatea's like, okay, I got you in my sights, so let's see what happens.
Yeah.
But Albert then shows up, and he's like, kill them both.
Yeah.
Take them both out. We're done.
Yeah. And I think Danny's so confused because he's like, who's responsible? Who's causing this? Like, he's telling Allison, like, stop her, make her stop, and she's like, I don't have anything to do with this. I'm just a nosy girl. Like, I have nothing to do with the murders.
Right. And Galatea's, like, refusing to kill both of them. Mm-hmm. So Albert's like, all right, fine, we'll re-engage what is it? Command protocols.
Yeah, he said, like, access override mode says a long number code or whatever.
Yeah. So basically, he's taking control.
Yeah, and Galatea, like, tears start, like, dripping down. Oh, like, either I can't remember, but, like, it looks like she's, like, crying at the idea of, like, having to kill these people. So, like, she's getting her humanity here at the end, but not enough to be able to resist. So, like, it's like electric powers shoot out of her or something.
Right. Well, she still manages to direct it just towards Danny.
Mm-hmm.
She only gets Danny, but yeah, she electrocutes him to death effectively.
He like catches on fire. Like, it's. Yeah. I mean, it's. Which again is such an '80s thing. Like, we loved to set a stunt man on fire back in the '80s.
Fire stunts were the best, right? But of course, his dummy falls off the roof instead of him.
Yeah. So he stumbles back on fire, falls off the roof, and then we get a they tossed a burning dummy off a building, which just looks great.
Right, but Allison sees the gun that Danny left. She goes for it. Albert gets there first, and he's like, well, you know what? Fine. I mean, Galatea won't kill you. I'll kill you. We're going to finish this now.
But before he can do anything, the cops all arrive with Clippy in the lead. And they yell "freeze, police" and all that, and
they shoot him a couple times just so he knows they mean business.
Yeah,
stop resisting. Sorry,
right, exactly. Yeah. Albert goes down. Like, I think he just gets hit in the shoulder though. Like, and while he's down, Clippy rushes to Allison, kind of pulls her to safety. Galatea goes to Albert and kind of helps him to his feet. And he's like, they're on to us, like, help, get me to safety. We need to go to a safe place. And if you remember, that was an important line.
There's only one safe place.
Yeah. Yep. One safe place. So she carries him, walks to the edge of the building, and jumps off with her brother in her arms.
And then we cut to Moonlight. As they hit, we hear that, like, beep,
and we get like a brief shot of static as it's like the robot's vision, like, going out.
Right, but immediately after we get the cut of the Moonlight Sonata starts playing.
Yeah,
which that's very poetic.
It was really good. Like, I didn't expect that to, like, hit the way it did. But yeah, like, we go to credits, it's just black and Moonlight Sonata, and it was just like, damn, like, this movie actually, like, kind of got me here at the end.
Right. The one thing I would have liked to see is, like, this movie deserved an after credit scene where somebody brought her back, even if it was, like, the police doctor. That would have been something nice, just to see his face being like, all right, she's up and running, she's alive, something like that.
Yeah, it would have been nice for Galatea to get something a little better at the... I mean, I know she was basically a robot, but it seemed like she was finding her way to humanity and feelings. So that would have been nice to have her, like, not dead at the end.
Right.
But
that's kind of the only way it could have ended effectively, with Albert, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is definitely a movie where, like, the people who, like, had to live were Clippy and Allison. We needed them to kind of, like, sort of ride off into the sunset, and we kind of get that with them. But, like we were saying at the beginning, it is sort of strange to have this movie that is functionally a rape revenge movie, but, like, the survivor of the attack or whatever doesn't actually survive and isn't actually autonomous and in control of herself. It felt a little weird. Like, I did appreciate Galatea's arc of, like, finding her humanity as we go, but it felt a little strange that, like, she didn't have humanity right away as a survivor of an assault.
Is it me putting too much on this by saying, like, it seemed like the end of her life was all controlled by other guys? Whether there was the section with Danny effectively controlling her fate up until her trying to reclaim her safety in her self-termination, and then after that, Albert controlling her to get her own revenge, but kind of his revenge instead.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an accurate, like, and that's another, we were, as you said earlier, like, it'd be interesting to see her life before the assault, and I feel like there's probably, some sort of coach or teacher, like a whiplash kind of situation. It would be interesting to see a man behind her making her be a better pianist, and it'd be like, this poor woman has been pushed through her entire life by men. I feel like that would have been an interesting way to take this story, where she kind of maybe would get to reclaim some sort of autonomy at the end of her life. The only two times that she really feels like she gets to make a decision for herself is when she ends her life both times,
Right.
Which is, it's hard. Like, it's a really bleak ending, but, in a way that feels sort of like the ending of Bride of Frankenstein, where, like, the one time that the Frankenstein monster gets to make his own decision is when he decides that he belongs dead, and that, unfortunately in that case, the bride character doesn't get to decide anything, and, just becomes dead, against her own will. But, like, this feels like a pretty grim, bleak movie. It doesn't, nobody really comes off in a good place at the end of this movie. Like it's not an optimistic movie.
No, not at all. Definitely cynical. And even Allison and Clippy are probably going to need some therapy after this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've definitely gone through some really rough, and we haven't gotten enough of their relation. It's not the kind of thing where it's like, oh, they're happily ever after. No, maybe not necessarily. Clippy's probably still going to be a cop who's too dedicated to his job, probably more so after this. And Allison is probably going to feel lonely and jealous, and hopefully be able to process this through her art a little bit. But it doesn't seem likely that they're either one of them is going to have a great happy life after everything they've experienced in this.
Not at all. But hey, I guess arguably we got an abrupt ending there at the end.
There's nothing more abrupt than cutting from people falling off a building to static.
Not wrong. All right, but any other thoughts on it?
I think this is it's a really interesting movie. It's sad and thoughtful, and it's not cheerful, but I think it's definitely worth your time. Like, it's a movie that's going to make you kind of like reckon with like the dark sides of being a person and pain, and as we were saying, the loss of autonomy that people often experience for various reasons in their lives and everything. So it's definitely worth checking out for sure.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of like this era of just like quote unquote trashy 80s action movies often, kind of have these sort of like secret agendas that like, you can watch Terminator and just be like, hell yeah, guy exploding stuff,
right.
But there's always something there that like if you want to spend a little time and think about it. And I think this movie, like we said at the beginning, like it looks silly. It's got the big steel and lace and like the two different fonts, and it's it's definitely got some trashiness to it.
But there's some brains there too, right?
Yeah. Which I that's why we keep doing this show, is like watching these exploitation genre movies that have a little bit more under the surface if you want to spend time with them.
Absolutely. So Anthony, obviously this week we've dealt with some steel and lace. So let's keep the BDSM train running with some Frankenstein Unbound.
So this is I feel like one of the classic ones that like there's a lot of like Frankenstein movies that you'll hear people reference a lot, and this is one that I feel like it's high time we finally got to this one. I believe this one's a late Roger Corman movie, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is actually one that Corman even directed, not just a production. It's like in the 90s. It's later in his career, but I'm excited to get to this one. It's a really it's been a while since I watched it, but I remember it being like a really kind of fun sort of like, I think Mary Shelley is in it, but also the monster, like it really plays with like time travel, even if I remember right. I'm excited.
We're getting some John Hurt, some Bridget Fonda, Jason Patrick. Come on.
Raul Julia, just a lot of classic genre guys, and so of course that's the thing with Roger Corman, is you often get like people that you're like, oh shit, this is a huge name actor, and you're just like, well, this was kind of before they were a huge name actor or after they were a huge name actor. Like that's he's either like giving people their first chance or their last chance. But like this one is another, Steel and Lace was very sci-fi. This felt like another kind of sci-fi look at Frankenstein that they seem of a piece in a way. So I'm excited to talk about this one.
Absolutely. All right. Well, anything else we got to say?
I think that's it.
All right. In that case, to be continued. That was my robot voice. It's not a good one.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.